Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, hello, bonjour, hello. All right, you guys have been so nice. Thank you so much for the nice things you said. So that's the first thing I got to tell you. The second thing is I had asked, which demonstrations would you prefer, the digital art or the traditional art? The digital one, hands down. There was like 133 digitals, 15 wanted pastels and traditional pastels, and about 30 wanted traditional painting. But clearly the winner was the digital art and Procreate specifically. So since that was the overwhelming request, it's not to say that I won't do traditional art on these little demonstrations. I will. But I think especially the first video after looking at all those responses is this one. So I wanted to show you how I do digital. So today I'm going to show you how I painted with digital pastel. So I am using the pastel. I'm going to explain this as we go through the video. But I did this portrait of this young woman. What can I tell you here? So I used the pastel brush. This is Procreate. Procreate comes with brushes. Let me see if I can show you. I'm going to try to do it here. Okay, so here, this is the, well, let me go to the Procreate screen, I guess. So there's my gallery. Let's go to, so there's the Procreate screen. That's the home screen, I guess you would call it. Get it out of there and do it look upside down. So then what you do is you open up a blank canvas. In this case, I'm going to open up the canvas that I used. The brushes are here. And so you can pick from an assortment of brushes. And you can see the blue one is highlighted, I think. Oh no, that's not the one I used. I used this one in the sketching category. Okay, because there's lots of categories. So I used this one right here, the soft pastel. Can you see it? And then, of course, if you're familiar with how you use, I'll explain it as it goes through. But over here, you get to move up and down the size of the pastel, the size of the brush, the size of the pencil, whatever you're using. And down here is the opacity of it. So down here, so it's either going to be very, like you have a very light touch or a very heavy touch, with your actual, if you're using actual pastel. So I'm going to show you how I did this painting. I don't know the young lady, by the way. Just somebody I got off the internet. And let's see, what else can I tell you? So that's it. So this is digital. It's with Procreate, and but I do it in a traditional way. I don't use. This is the thing that's really important for me to tell you. I don't like put a photograph in there and then just push a button. There. You're going to see in a second as I go through. If you watch the whole thing, you pick and choose what you want to see. The other thing that Robin and I discussed is talking just a moment about my history in doing this stuff. I did sketches in the theme parks here in Florida. I did the resorts, I should say. I did sketches at of people. Now, I did not do the the caricatures where the big nose, the big forehead, and the skinny little tiny body, riding a horse or a motorcycle. I did portraits like what you just saw with the young lady. I did it with Disney. I did it with Universal Studios. I did it at Silver Springs when it was an attraction. I did it at Hilton's and different hotels and different events. So I've been doing a lot of this, and it was always sitting down across from a person who's sitting there to have their portrait done, and it was always with traditional charcoal, white charcoal, black charcoal mostly, sometimes black and white. Mostly that was it. And I would sit down with them for 15 minutes to a half hour, and they would walk home with a painting or picture. Now, it's been a long time since I've done this. I was in radio for 34 years, so you figure out how much. I think I did this at the same time as I did radio for a few years. But anyway, digital wasn't around back then, especially a portable digital like you can do now with the iPad. There's nothing wrong with doing it digitally. You end up with a beautiful picture. You can print it up. Hey, you're going to photograph it anyway if you want to share it with a friend, a traditional one. All right, so let's get started with this video. And we'll start right here. 3, 2, 1, start. There it goes. Okay. So there's the finished portrait, and now here's the beginning of this. Let me just narrate as we go through here. So there I am. That's me choosing the different things. So I'll explain everything along the way. So the first thing was to pick a color for the paper. I didn't want to paint, and it is called paint, by the way, when you use pastel. You can call it draw, but I didn't want to use white paper, so I used a brownish, orangish paper. Here I am. I'm picking the brush, which is the pastel, and this is how you adjust the color on your palette. If you're not familiar with Procreate, this is a good video right here to watch. I use the Procreate a lot for paintings, and this is pastel paintings, but I use it for like oil paintings. And the way I do it is I pick the different brushes that seem to be most appropriate for whatever I'm painting. Sometimes I use an oil brush, sometimes I use a turpentine brush, but that's what it's called. You know, it's not turpentine, obviously. Sometimes I use a dry brush, which is really kind of a cool effect too. But there's so many choices and so many different artists that I've watched right here on YouTube that use digital tools, and they will quite often have ink, pen and ink, digital. Pencil sketches, digital. It's just amazing. It's really incredible. So what I'm doing here is exactly the same thing I would do if it was an actual pastel. I might have made it a little bit lighter touch, because with pastel you want to layer it with lightness, and then build on that. That way you can correct your mistakes. And so basically I was just trying to get the shape of her face and then the shape of her hair around her face. I didn't worry too much about the skin tone at this point. I just was going for, she's got pretty fair complexion, so it's just a light colored skin tone just to start off with, and a darker brown or burnt umber for the hair. And then you just kind of take it from there. And you can see already that I'm doing a portrait. One of the things that you'll see later on is that I correct some of my mistakes, and I do use the tools that digital art provides you. In other words, I could change the shape or even the position of some things, and you'll see how I did that on here. In traditional art, you do not have that luxury. In traditional art, you have to really focus and make sure your hand is doing what your eye is seeing. And if it's not there, you've got to catch that early on. You can't wait till the end. But with digital, you can. So, all right. So I'm just sketching in. I'm looking for the dark areas. It was a little bit overkill right there, the side of her face, but I knew that I was going to go back to it. Right there between her hair and her neck, you can see it's a darker area. So I'm just sketching that in there. I don't want to do lines too much. Obviously, the part around her eye, her eyelashes, her eyelids, her eyebrows, they will be lines or thicker brush strokes, if you will. Or thinner, I should say, thinner brush strokes. Yeah, and I am using a light touch. One of the things about Procreate is it is touch sensitive. I'm using an Apple Pencil, That's the tool I'm using, the stylus. It works very, very well with the Procreate. Procreate with on the iPad, and it's an iPad Pro, by the way. I don't know if that makes a difference. That's kind of beyond me, but that's what I do use in case that you need to know that. And I am drinking coffee from Dunkin' Donuts, by the way. Homemade Dunkin' Donut coffee in my NYC cup. With the guy sitting on the girder. See that? Well, that's a famous picture. Do you know where that is? That's at Rockefeller Center. Yep. A lot of people think it's the Empire State Building, but it's not. You know, what do they call it? 30 Rock, I guess? When we were kids, what did we call it? I guess we just called it Rockefeller Center. It's right next to Radio City Music Hall. And Radio City was what the hell called the whole thing before my time. But anyway, there it is. Oh, it says it right on the cup too. See? Top of the rock. See? Yeah, that's where that was taken. And you know, interesting thing about that photo, it's public domain. People sell it all the time. People download it off the internet and then they sell it. It's not their work, but they sell it anyway. That's the way the world is. All right, so you can see here I'm wiping my mouth. No, I'm rough sketching the eyes. I'm really not sketching the eyes. What I'm really doing is I'm placing marks on the canvas so that I know where the eyes will go. If you look on this, the shape of her face is not quite right. I do fix that later on, and you could fix that with traditional pastel just by as long as you put down a light layer first, you can put down another layer over it later on. If you put down a heavy layer, maybe you could fix it with dark or light on dark. I don't know. It's not always easy, but I did a hold on. I did a, if you didn't see the other video, I did some actual pastel and charcoal demonstrations, so I'll show you some of them. This is one I did that's actual, charcoal, black charcoal and white charcoal on gray paper. And this is just black and white on bluish or blue-gray paper. These are demonstrations I did previously. I think you guys told me that you prefer the full length instead of the time-lapse. I think I did those in time-lapse. This is just a simple landscape, seascape that I did. Again, using pastels. And if you want to know which brand pastel, it was Rembrandt, like the artist. This is a painting I did, or pastel painting I did of a woman drinking a glass of wine. I focused more on the woman and the wine than I did on the hand. The hand is rather sketchy still. But again, it's traditional. It's not digital at all. And I think, let's see, I think this is the last one. Oh no, there's another one under here. All right, so let me show you this one. This is the last one, but there's another one I want to show you. So this is a portrait I did recently with traditional pastel. What I liked about the model here, the photograph I used, was the dappled light on her face coming through the hat. And finally, this one landscape I did. This is a creek going through a wooded area, and it's done with traditional pastel. I'll show you those pastels. Wow, I got these. These are my old. I've had these forever. So it's Rembrandt mixed with other brands, but there, that one still has the label on it. Where's the camera? You see Rembrandt, and that has paper on it. Oh, and if you want to know the blending stump, sometimes I use these things. Ooh, it's got something on it. Sometimes I use these things. Sometimes I use some insulation from plumbing or wiring. But the other box, is this. This is the other box of Rembrandts. Here's the Rembrandt pastel box. I'll show you what they look like. It's nice when they're in the box. They look nice. I got to get back talking about that digital. But anyway, so here's the, that's what they look like. The other pastels. All right, let me get back to the digital. See, there wasn't a whole lot I could tell you. It's just a lot of drawing. It's a lot of focus. I will tell you this. I mentioned earlier that I did a lot of live sitting at a theme park, sitting at a hotel, sitting at a resort with people, 5 feet, 3 feet in front of me, just looking at me for a half hour, and I would draw them. And you got to focus. So a couple things I'll tell you about that is you draw what you see, not what you know. I know some people disagree with that. You should draw what you know. But let me explain what I mean, because they are not wrong when they say it, because they have a different meaning. So I got to give you the deeper meaning. Okay? Here it is. If, for example, you're looking at me and you're going to draw me right now, and I'm looking down like this, you don't see my nostrils, right? I hope not. You don't see them. But you know they're there. Everybody has a tendency to put nostrils, no matter whether they see them or not. Now, if I'm looking up like this, you see my nostrils, right? So you draw what you see. You know there's nostrils there, but you don't draw them if you don't see them. Sometimes a man like me, if you turn your head, you see them. And also, with teeth, if you have a beard, there's so many different things with a portrait. Now, with landscapes, it's not so important, because you could make a mistake on a landscape and nobody would know. Unless the tree's somehow unique and everybody loves this tree, just have fun. Do the Bob Ross thing. Just have fun. Just enjoy what you're doing. Portraits is a different animal because likenesses are so important, and that goes for portraits of pets also. Yes, you may not see the difference between one bulldog and another bulldog, but trust me, the owner can tell the difference, and the owner will know if you have captured the likeness of the pet. Capturing the likeness, that's what this particular video is about. And in this case, I'm capturing it using a digital platform called Procreate, as you know. I'm 12 minutes into it. I think it's a half-hour video. So you can see it's about, a lot of the stuff is there already. But check out that forehead. Does that forehead look a little bit too big to you? It is. If it was traditional art, I'd have to fix it by just painting over it and then maybe doing some kind of a background to get rid of some of the stuff that shouldn't be there, because you can't erase it once pastel is on paper in traditional. Digital, you're going to see how I fix some of these things. Let me see. I'm looking at a monitor. I'm going to make my monitor a little bigger. Okay, now I can see what I'm doing. And I'm choosing colors. I'm going to show you how I sometimes select colors from the reference photo itself also, because that's a cool tool. I wouldn't recommend it all the time, because sometimes it's better to make something a little bit brighter, especially landscapes. You might want to make the sunlight on the ground a little bit exaggerated, or the shadows of the trees a little bit exaggerated, or maybe the distant mountains, the distant row of trees, the things in the distance. You might want to exaggerate the amount of haziness in the atmosphere, just to create the illusion in a two-dimensional picture. All right, so let's see. So what I just did there, I took the reference photo and I enlarged it so that I could better see what this girl's eyes look like. And now I'm going to fine-tune the eye to make it look more like the actual girl's eye. This is not cheating, by the way. If you have a subject in front of you, trust me, You you can't make their face any bigger, but you can stare right at their face and you will see every little thing. God gave us this amazing ability to see detail. It's not always possible when you're looking at a screen, but if you're looking at me, if I'm sitting across the table from you, trust me, you can see every little detail in my face, and so can I on yours. And so when you're painting or drawing somebody, you do see those little things, but you have to look at the big picture and the detail at the same time. The big picture is going to keep everything where it should be. The detail is going to make those little areas just a little bit more vibrant. So this girl has some light on her, reflecting off of her eyelid, and it's got the space right there where the skin folds up under itself in the eyelid, so that you make that tiny little suggestion there. And also the whites of the eyes, you want to make sure they're not really white. There's some instances where they will be, but for most of the time they're not. They're either an off color of the skin of the person. Sometimes you get away with a little bit of a gray. Sometimes you get away with a light purple or a grayish purple or a grayish blue. And also, of course, you can put more than one color into the whites of the eyes. In this particular one, I just kind of kept it in the gray realm. It's kind of hard to tell here, isn't it? Because it looks like white, but it's not. It's not white. It's rather dark, actually. If you hold up a piece of white paper, you'll see. I don't think it'll work if I do it here with this little insert that I'm talking to you from. But now this girl has a ring in her nose, which I didn't put in there. Not because I have any problem with rings in the nose. I just forgot. I just was drawing her, and I just didn't. One of the things, I knew I was doing this as a demonstration for YouTube, and so I wanted to make it I didn't want to make it a 2-hour video. So I thought, if I can get this done in a half hour, Bob Ross style. Bob Ross used to do his, I think his was 27 minutes long. They had to leave 3 minutes for the intro and the commercials. That's pretty incredible if you think about it. Every single show, he did a complete landscape in 27 minutes. And what was it, 16 by 20? The canvases? Wow. That's pretty incredible. He lived here in Florida, I think. And he lived in Alaska too. He must have liked the extremes, one way or the other. Really cold or really hot. Okay, so now I'm just detailing what I can with her eyes. Okay, I'm trying to make her eyes so I can see. What I'm trying to do is see the relationship between the placement of her eyes and her nose. It's not quite perfect, but don't tell anybody. It's just, sometimes when you're sketching, and P.S., here's the other part of this. If you plan on doing a full portrait of somebody, you should do preliminary sketches. All those things you get wrong in those sketches, you'll be able to correct when you do a final sketch onto the canvas for which you're going to do the actual painting or canvas with paper with pastel. Yeah, you have to do several sketches. That's why when I would do the sketches at the resorts, I would say, this is the first sketch. This is the first sketch. If I were doing a portrait of you, this is the first one. And then you have to study the subject. In Disney, probably in Universal also. Now, I'm pretty sure they all do this. They take a picture of you, a photograph, and then the artist works from the photograph while you're out shopping. And you come back a couple hours later, and your portrait is done. So it's not a bad way of, because you go to these theme parks, and you're standing in line enough as it is. You don't want to stand in another 2-hour line just to get your picture drawn. So yeah, that's what they do. They'll take a picture with a photograph and work from the photographs. In Disney Springs, they do that, and I guess in the theme parks too. I haven't been in the theme parks. Robin and I go to Disney Springs to go shopping. Probably gonna go before Christmas. I like Disney Springs. It's kind of fun. It's like being a tourist. All right, now you can tell by looking at this how blotchy and how much work still needs to be done to make this young girl look decent, look good. You might also be able to tell that her left eye, the one on our right, is not in the right place. It's not quite right. So I will be moving that in just a moment. I don't know. I think it's called a lasso tool, and it's on Procreate, and it's on Photoshop and a couple of other art programs that have the same thing. The lip, you're looking at the girl straight forward, so you can see the reflection of the light on her lower lip, which is usually the case, not always, but usually. A little cleft between her, under her nose that we all have, except you can't see mine because of my mustache. But you got to put that, you got to be careful with that. You know, the light's going to hit one side, the other side's going to be shaded, and then the inside of that cleft is going to have some light reflecting off of it. Also, the inside of the nostrils, they all catch light. If you're looking, I'm looking at myself in this monitor, you see the light's hitting there, and the dark is over here. Same thing with that girl. Same thing with all of us. It's the way light hits us. If you hold the flashlight under your, you've done this, right? Then you have the shadows going up. And that's a cool look too. Another thing I would like to demonstrate for you is using the wrong colors intentionally. Intentionally painting something with purple. Okay, now there, you see what I did? I took the lasso and I grabbed the eye, and now I'm trying to better align it with her nose so that it looks more like the young girl in the photograph. So they capture her. You can see I still haven't corrected her forehead. Her forehead is still a little bit too elongated. And then to correct, when you move a piece of the picture, you have to use the blending stump. I don't know if you can see it there. See how it left these little gaps when I pulled it apart, almost like you cut it with a piece of paper. And so then you use the blending, the one that looks like a finger pointing, and you push the pastel around, or the pixels that represent the pastel. What I like about the brush, the pastel brush, what I like about all of them, most of them, is that they also replicate what the paper would look like normally. You know, the tooth of the paper. In the pastel brush, that's exactly what that one does. So now I'm just fine-tuning it. I mean, half of this video is putting down the foundation, the other half is fine-tuning it and correcting mistakes. Again, if I was doing a demonstration like one of the pictures I showed you a little while ago, if you look at those videos, you'll see that I do correct some mistakes on some of them. I can't remember what I did on those. So again, when you paint what you see, not what you know, and in this case you can see that her nostril on the right, her left nostril is slightly obscured by the middle part of her nose, because she's got her head turned just a little bit. And you got to make sure you put that in there. The light's under her chin, the shadows. Oh, and see what I did right there? I sampled the color from the reference photo. I just thought, well, let me get some of those colors off of there and put them onto here, which is it's a really cool thing you can do. You run into the problem of the painting looking like the photograph. Some people want that. I prefer to have a painting look like a painting. I think I worked on this one a little bit to the point where it sort of kind of looks maybe like the photograph, but not exactly. But I think that's one of the beauties of art, is that you don't want it to look like the photograph. You want, well, in some cases you do. If you're working for a studio, and like a movie studio, I mean, and they want you to do an environment they want it to look like a real place. They don't want it to look like all the actors are running around in a painting, because that's what they do. They'll put that artwork in the background, and then Obi-Wan Kenobi or whatever, they're all running around with that behind them as if they're really in that place. So that art has to be photographic looking. But I think art in general, just art. Think about the work of Monet, and think about the work of Van Gogh, and think about the work of even Peter Max and Picasso. Well, Picasso had so many changes in his life with what he did. Some of the newer artists, if you just look at their work, they all have their own way of doing it, and they have their different to different extent to which they try to replicate what they see in a photographic way, as opposed to in an artsy way, for lack of a better way to explain what I'm trying to say. Let's see. There's probably a point here where I want to change her forehead. Okay, right now I sampled some of the color from the photograph. I probably didn't quite realize that her forehead was a little bit too elongated, so I needed to shrink it. So now what I do is I'm merging the two layers, so that's one layer. Here I go. Now watch this. I'm going to put a line around her forehead, leaving her eyes where they are. And now I'm going to grab what I just did, and I'm going to use the distort feature. Look at that. Look at that. I'm pulling it down, and I'm distorting it intentionally. So now her forehead is a little bit better. Looks a little bit more like the photograph. See? Isn't that cool how you could do that? Now I'm sampling the colors that are already there on the painting itself. Just trying to make that forehead look more like the forehead that I'm looking at in the photograph. Just trying to get all those little shadows and highlights in the right places. So you can see it's starting to look like the young lady. I don't have her lips perfect, and maybe I never did. Maybe I didn't notice that before when I did it. But here's the thing, when I would do sketches at the hotels and at the resorts, and the theme parks, 90%, no, more than 90. No, 90% of the time I got a good likeness. That means 10% of the time I didn't get a good likeness. And that means that some of the customers weren't exactly completely happy, depending on their attitude. And I would always explain, look, I do this as a first sketch, and I don't always get it the first time. My accuracy with likenesses is, I think I used to tell them 85%, but I think it was more like 90. The more, you do it a lot, it's a lot of practice, and but still you're going to have some problems. So here what I'm doing is I use the lasso tool to manipulate her mouth a little bit. I felt like it was not quite right, and so I'm just kind of moving the corners and the edges just a little bit, just to move them around a little bit. There's another trick I should have shown you, but I didn't do it. But let me tell you about it. I'll do it in a future video. There's a layer you can create using, oh gosh, what is it called again? Let me look. Oh gosh. Maybe I could show you while that's running up there. Okay, it's called multiply. So you can do something. I'm going to try and show you on here. Let's see if I can do this. No, this is going to be too difficult for me to do this way. Okay, so I'm not going to do that. I'll do it on another video. But the point is, you can use that multiply layer, and you can brush in the shadows without ruining the picture, because you can always undo them. You can brush in highlights. That was the multiply layer for the shadows. For the highlights, you can use, there's another setting. I can't remember what it's called. Let me look. Oh, color dodge. I use color dodge a little bit sometimes. But I didn't use any of those tricks on this particular sketch that you're watching. I just used, this is straightforward, just drawing, and drawing with pastel, but in this case, digital pastel. But the truth is, even though it feels different and holds different, it's really no different than working with this Rembrandt. Is upside down? Rembrandt. This pastel on paper feels different. It's messier. But ultimately, the digital tools that are made available by those people, these smart people who put these things together, they've given us some amazing tools so you can work with things digitally. And as I always say, once a picture is done in painting or anything, in order to share it with the rest of the world, you have to take a photograph of it. That photograph becomes the digital version of the painting. In this case, you start with the digital version, right? I mean, the whole thing is going to be digital right from beginning to end. One thing I probably wouldn't do, except for like theme parks and stuff, I don't think I would do just a sketch like this, just the face. I think I would probably do more of the shoulders, more like what you see of me right now, like from the bust from here up. It's just a better composition, I think. Or even further down the person, especially if they have some clothing on, that would be fun to add. Okay, so now, let's see, I'm at the 31-minute mark, and this is only a 33-minute video, I think. So I'm just adding the little things that add the highlight to her hair, to make her hair look a little bit more manicured, more cut, because she has a nice haircut in the picture, the actual girl. Whereas before it kind of had it looking choppy on the ends. And that, my friends, is the whole thing. There's not a whole lot more to tell you. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this, I'm trying to do these are not, Robin and I do another channel on YouTube called The World Spins Fine on Her Own, if you're interested in that. That's where we go places and we take the camera and we just show you. We went camping earlier this week and we made a video of that. That's kind of cool. But these videos on this channel are mostly to show the art. Hopefully it'll help you, encourage you, inspire you, maybe even show you some tricks. I would encourage you to watch other artists who do the things that you want to do. There's a bunch of them out there. And if I start naming them, I'm going to forget some good ones. But you just type in the search, painting with pastel or painting with oil. Andrew Tischler is the name that comes up with painting with oil. He's beautiful. Oh my gosh, this guy's outstanding. See, I shouldn't have named any, right? Because now I'm forgetting. And this, the Monet Cafe, I believe that's a lady, really pretty lady too. She does pastels all the time. Of course, there's James Gurney, who uses a bunch of different mediums. He uses a lot on his videos. He uses gouache. Lee White and Jake Parker and Will Terry, the three of those guys, they do videos all the time, 3 different styles. They're with this SVS Learn company, or that's theirs, they made that up. But still, it's a great way to learn. Hey, you could even learn from other artists by going to their forum. And just keep looking. There's so many I'm leaving out. Laura Price, if you want to learn how to do environments, background. She's worked for Disney also, and she's worked for Paramount, I think. Okay, looks like I'm done. There you go. There's the young girl. And the portrait. Now, if she came to the theme park and walked away with that, I think she'd be pretty happy. I think so. And it was a half-hour job. Okay? All right, you guys, thanks for watching. See you later.